Your floating flower centerpiece looks stunning on Friday night, and by Sunday brunch it is a cloudy, wilted mess floating in murky water. That is not bad luck. That is a chemistry problem, and there is an actual fix for it that most tutorials skip completely because it is not as pretty a film as the flower arranging part. Before we get into it, if you are into honest, no sponsor, no brand deal home content, hit subscribe on Home Intel right now. Everything here is tested in a real home, not dressed up for a photo shoot. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly why your centerpieces die early and how to make them last the entire weekend without changing the water once. Stick around because the last tip is the one that actually makes the biggest difference, and almost nobody mentions it. Why floating centerpieces die so fast. Floating flowers are different from flowers in a vase. In a vase, the stem still pulls water and nutrients up into the bloom. Once you cut the stem short and float the flower head on its own, that supply line is mostly gone, though the small stem stub and the base of the flower head still absorb a little moisture directly from the water. Since that lifeline is so limited, the flower is relying heavily on what is stored inside its own tissue, which means water quality matters enormously. Tap water contains chlorine, fluoride, and trace minerals that are fine for humans but slowly break down plant tissue. Warm water speeds up bacterial growth, and bacteria is the actual villain here, not the flower aging naturally. The cloudy water you see by day 2 is not the flower falling apart on its own. It is bacteria multiplying in that little bowl and attacking the plant tissue from the outside in. The water setup that changes everything. Start with distilled or filtered water instead of straight tap water. This removes most of the chlorine and mineral content that accelerates breakdown. Keep the water cool to room temperature, never warm. Warm water speeds up bacterial growth fast, while cool water actually slows down the flower's metabolism and keeps it fresher for longer. This is also why florists store cut stock in refrigerated coolers. Cold is a preservation tool, not a shock to plant. Add flower food to water, but understand what it is actually doing. Sugar feeds a bloom, but in a shallow floating bowl, it also feeds bacteria just as fast, which is exactly what causes that cloudy water. That means the antimicrobial part of the mix matters more than the sugar part. A simple home version is 1 quart of cool water, a small pinch of sugar, and a few drops of white vinegar or lemon juice for acidity. If you want to skip the sugar entirely, that is fine. The acid and cleanliness are doing the real preservation work. Commercial flower food packets work well too, because they're formulated with a proper bactericide built in, which a home mix cannot fully replicate. Choosing flowers that are built for this. Not every flower is suited for floating. You want blooms with sturdy, somewhat waxy petals and a naturally low water need once cut. Ranunculus, dahlias, peonies in their firmer stage, and roses that are not fully open yet all hold up well, since a fully bloomed rose has less structural integrity left and will brown at the edges within a day. Gardenias and camellias are popular for floating because they look incredible, but they need a specific warning. Their petals brown almost instantly if water splashes on the face of bloom or if they get handled too much. So if you use them, place them gently and avoid disturbing them once they are set. Avoid delicate, thin-petaled flowers like poppies or fully open tulips for floating displays, since they bruise and brown almost immediately on contact with water. If you love the look of those flowers, use them as accent pieces around the bowl instead of floating them directly. The cutting technique most people skip. How you cut the stem matters more than people expect. Cut the stem at an angle roughly 1 to 2 inches below the flower head, leaving just enough stem to keep the bloom stable, so it does not flip over in the water. The angle slightly increases the surface area available for whatever small amount of hydration the stub can absorb, while still leaving enough length to anchor the bloom properly. Use a sharp blade rather than scissors. Scissors crush the stem tissue at the cut point, and crushed tissue breaks down faster and clouds the water sooner. A clean angle cut from a sharp knife or floral shears keeps that tissue intact for as long as possible. The daily maintenance routine that adds days. This is a part almost nobody talks about, and it is a major part of the actual trick behind making these last all weekend. Every 24 hours, Gently lift each flower out. Wipe the bowl clean to remove the biofilm. That slimy layer of bacteria builds up on the surface. And refresh the water completely with a new batch of your cool water and food mixture. Simply topping off the water without cleaning the bowl will not solve the problem. The biofilm keeps rebuilding bacteria even in fresh water. While the flowers are out of the water, pat away any browning petal edges with a soft cloth. Browning tissue releases enzymes into the water that accelerate decay in the healthy petals around it, so removing it early protects the rest of the bloom. Temperature and placement matter more than decor style. Keep the arrangement away from direct sunlight and heating vents. Warmth accelerates bacterial growth in the water and dries out petal edges faster than anything else on this list. A centerpiece sitting in a sunny window can visibly decline within hours compared to one kept in a cooler, shaded part of the room. If your event runs into the evening, consider moving the arrangement to a refrigerator for a short period between uses. Florists commonly store cut flowers at temperatures just above freezing to extend their life. So even 15 to 20 minutes of chill time in your fridge between uses can meaningfully extend the life of your blooms without anyone noticing the centerpiece ever left the table. The trick that actually makes it last all weekend. Here is the piece most tutorials leave out entirely. Instead of floating the flower head with its base fully exposed to the water, place a small clear glass or acrylic disc, sometimes called a flower float or a floral pin frog cap, underneath the bloom before it goes into the water. This barrier limits how much of the flower's cut surface sits in direct, constant contact with the water, dramatically slowing the rate of tissue breakdown, while keeping the visual effect of the flower floating freely. Pair this with cool water, a proper antimicrobial rather than a heavy sugar load, and a daily reset that clears out biofilm, and you are addressing all the real causes of early decay at once: bacterial growth, direct tissue exposure, and mineral buildup. This combination is the actual difference between a centerpiece that looks sad by Saturday morning and one that still looks event-ready on Sunday evening. To recap the full method, use cool distilled water with a light acid-based flower food rather than a heavy sugar mix. Choose sturdy petal blooms while handling gardenias and camellias with extra care. Cut stems at an angle with a sharp blade. Use a flower float or similar barrier under each bloom, and refresh the entire setup every 24 hours while scrubbing away biofilm and removing browning petals. None of these steps are difficult on their own, but skipping even one of them is usually why the centerpiece does not make it through weekend. That is the real trick behind floating centerpieces that actually last. Not a single hack, but a small system that protects a flower from every angle. If this saved you from a wilted table next time you are hosting, give this video a like and subscribe to Home Intel for more honest, test-at-home content with no sponsors and no fluff. Let me know in the comments which flower you are trying this with, and I will see you in the next one.